Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to review, in my opinion, the best mods to use on Priya. Now this is important to note that these mods are used specifically when Priya has Rampage, and I'll explain why later in the video. Now don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content and information. Priya, hands down, is one of the most powerful S-classes to date, sporting a leadership skill that gives all ranged teammates plus 50% attack and a huge bonus to AP when attacking, makes her a perfect leader for any ranged team. With her rush being composed of 3 different basic attacks, it means she can apply mass amounts of damage off of a single attack. Add in, she's also able to control the enemy by confusing and impairing. Now, Priya is the one character that I recommend to anyone who asks me, who should I go for? Always go for Priya first. She's a leader toon, but she can also work as a support character. You really can't go wrong with her as a toon. Her cones, or soon-to-be cards, are readily available, which makes her very easy for new players to pick up, and she's a great toon to show people the ropes with. Now, ideally, Priya's weapon would actually have the better double attack version where it's, when attacking, a better chance to make a second attack at 175% damage, along with plus, I think it's 40 crit chance. Rampage, of course, is a must, especially with a double attack, and ideally 50% attack on her weapon, and that would make a perfect weapon. Now, this is a very common, I don't want to call it an argument, but I guess a discussion on what mods best suit Priya, and there's really a few things to think about. Firstly, her rush, if she didn't have a double attack weapon or Rampage, always does 3 basic attacks. When we add in a double attack weapon, it means on a normal attack, she has a chance to perform a second attack at 150% damage in this specific weapon's case. Now, on her rush, that means she can perform anywhere between 3 to 6 attacks, with half of them being double attacks. I'm going to be doing another video on this next part because I won't have the space to actually show you proof of this in this specific video, but the second attack, although you can get a critical hit, and we know that because a critical hit is how Rampage is triggered, and Priya's Rampage is sometimes triggered on that second attack, which you notice sometimes on her rush or on basic attacks. But the second attack that Priya does not include the damage from a critical hit. So I'm going to repeat that again. Although you can get a critical hit on the second attack from a weapon, it doesn't mean the crit damage will factor in. It's almost like the weapon itself, so in this case the 150% damage overwrites the crit damage and it's not factored in at all. On the better double attack weapon at 175% damage, it would be 175% damage, and ignore any crit damage mods that you have on her. So I'm actually going to be doing a video on that a little later just to showcase this ability because it's very apparent in the toon Henyon, especially when you get Crit Expert on his weapon. So it's actually difficult to know if this is intentional in the design or if it's actually a bug because it happens with Priya and it happens with Henyon, it happens with Steve, it happens with Marlon and Rosie. So considering it's consistent across all the characters that have double attack on their weapon, I would hazard a guess that it's intentional. And now when we jump back to the Rampage part of the weapon, we need to understand that Rampage is triggered based off of a critical hit, and every single toon has a base crit chance of 10. Now, the important thing to realize with crit chance is that you can have 100 crit chance points, but not get a critical hit 100% of the time. The only way to actually get a critical hit every single time is to use the Crit Expert craft on yellow weapons. So the reason why Rampage works so well with Priya is that it's triggered off of a critical hit off of a basic attack. And because, as we mentioned, when Priya rushes, she uses 3 basic attacks, it means all 3 of those chances have a chance to trigger Rampage, which means 2 other characters would receive 150% damage. And if that's not enough, her double attacks can also trigger Rampage, as mentioned before. So when you rush Priya with a double attack weapon with Rampage, she has the chance to hit between 3 and 18 times. This is an incredible amount of damage, and this is why she is so effective with this type of double attack weapon with Rampage. Now, to increase her effectiveness, you have to have a good mod choice, and this is heavily debated. But based off the numbers and understanding how damage is calculated, I figured that by using attack set mods, you will be maximizing her damage so long as she has Rampage. If she doesn't have Rampage, you're better off using crit damage set mods. So I have a crit chance mod on Priya because I obviously want Rampage to trigger often. I run Priya beside a Diego who has a team player weapon that gives plus 35 crit chance to all adjacent teammates. I run a crit damage mod on her because for every critical hit that I have off of one of her normal attacks, so that's truly a basic attack, she will get 45% more crit damage to that enemy and basically increases her damage output. I have a high stun resist on Priya because usually when toons rush, they can't trigger the effects of weapons or most mods, but because Priya rushes with basic attacks, it means she can trigger a weapon on any one of her basic attacks. I've added in an attack mod attack set so that she attacks with even more power. The whole set bonus as well adds on 690 attack to her attack stat. And lastly, I have an attack versus alert mod. Now, I'm tempted to change this off to like attack versus tough because there's a lot of tough characters or blue characters on defenses at the moment, but this just fits my mod set a little better by being a platinum mod. So a few weeks back, I ended up making a football style playbook of sorts based off of the mod set that I would use on Priya, assuming she has Rampage and double attack. So try to keep that initial design in mind, where the blue circle is our own toon Priya, and then the X with the yellow circle was the one where we're applying our initial attack to. So the crit damage is going to be applied to that toon specifically. The two blue lines show the other two toons that will be hit by the Rampage ability, and it doesn't have to be those specific toons. It can be any two other toons that are still up and playing. So again, Rampage is triggered on a critical hit, so the only toon that is actually getting the crit damage will be that initial target, because Rampage talks about 150% damage of a basic attack, meaning they won't receive any of the crit damage. So if you mod your Priya with a bunch of crit damage mods, it means you're losing the attack bonus that can actually be applied to the other two toons. And when you think about it, when it's a I hit one toon but I affect two others, and this is in direct correlation with my toon's attack, I want to raise my toon's attack as high as I can. So with crit damage mods, this will apply more damage to the initial target, so the yellow circle toon, up to 50% more crit damage if you have a gold set. If it's a platinum set, I'm not exactly sure how high it gets, but it does increase. This crit set means that you'll be doing less damage comparatively to the other two toons. So unless you're running a toon like Raven, who can prevent AP gains from Rampage, because Rampage does give AP away to any toons that it hits, same as splash damage. So as I said before, with Rampage hitting two other targets, it's more of a damage spread to other toons on a Priya rush because of the double attack and the Rampage, which are both influenced by the character's attack stat, but not their crit damage. As mentioned, crit damage is not factored into the double attack on the weapon. So this means you're losing out on a lot of damage potential, in my opinion, because if only 3 attacks of your potential 18 off of a rush actually factor in your crit damage set, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. Leaving the crit damage mod in the bottom left-hand corner is helpful though, because it will help with the initial damage to that primary target, and because there's really not another good mod choice to put in that bottom left-hand corner that would be consistent. One of my final grievances with running a crit damage set versus an attack set with Rampage is that there is a weapon effect of reducing crit damage by 50%, and a lot of the top players are running this specific weapon ability on their toons. So I've seen S-Class Frost with reduced crit damage by 50%, and my Priya wasn't able to hit him at all. I was doing the same amount of damage as really what I was doing to Toons in the legendary leg of a Nightmare Survival Road. So this specific weapon effect will have less of an impact on a character that is running attack set mods, but will have a profound impact on Toons with crit damage mods. You're also decreasing your base amount of power with a basic attack by running crit damage instead of attack set mods, and you might not think that 650 attack is much to lose, but when you factor in how it affects all of your basic attacks, your double attacks, and your rampage attacks, it's worth it. I guess the last point to mention is how attack is actually calculated, and also understanding where certain values factor in. So I truly believe there will always be a lot of discussion about what mod set is better, and part of the reasoning again behind why I choose attack set is because when we take a look at this formula, the mods are calculated in the first third of this formula, but the important point to note is that the attack, the leadership skill, and weapon are multiplied, the mods are added, and then limited time bonuses and war towers factor in to this damage output of the first part. So in a normal attack, it looks like mods play a small effect if they're an attack set mod, but when we factor in that war towers can give 30% more attack, and limited time attack bonuses also factor in. So this could be like a 75% attack buff from Alice as an example. This would actually multiply by the mods of this attack set, and with platinum attack mods going up to 1,250 additional damage, this multiplication factor has a huge impact on the overall damage. And now just to wrap up the formula, that value goes into Scopely's formula relating offense and defense. Then finally, it goes into the last part of the formula where if it's a critical hit, there's a multiplication by 1.5 plus crit damage mods, so you can get a crit damage mod of 50%. And if you have a gold set, that's another 50% damage, so really you're only losing out on 50% if you don't go with crit damage mods, but you're gaining so much more in attack overall because the attack will affect all attacks, so basic attacks, double attacks, as well as rampage. So now we're just going to look at a bit of short film. One basic attack, 748 damage. On this attack, rampage triggers, and we'll watch it again in slow-mo just to see the damage that's actually done. So I get a critical hit, 1310, 955, 841. You can tell that the crit damage was only applied to Priya there, but not Princess or Arav, who received the rampage damage. And in this next attack, we get a double attack and rampage on both of them. Slowing this down again, we'll see the first attack, 1411, 679, and 791. And off a double attack, we see 1073, 1114, and 1358. So there's actually something interesting happening here that I'm kind of just noticing as I'm looking at the film, but it seems like the rampage off a double attack is actually at a higher percent than the basic attack, the initial attack. And I think that has to do with the basic attack that Rampage is taking its damage from, or mimicking, is coming from the double attack, which is already at 150% damage. If I had the other double attack weapon at 175%, it would be even more consistent with applying high amounts of damage. So after testing this extensively, I would definitely say attack mods work much better on a Priya with Rampage than crit damage mods. But that's just my opinion in the end. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video.